Welcome in, everybody, to this week's version of the Free Will Burning Podcast. I'm Steve Patterson, joined by my brother Troy. On Fridays, we are the Gen X Transplant Bros, and we revisit what it was like growing up Gen X and all the experiences that we had along the way, and even some about today with Gen X. Troy, how you doing today?
Just dandy, daddy-o.
So tell me something. Here, I got a blanket question, Daddy-o. Daddy-o.
I remember saw Fred Flintstone say that one time. I'm like, well, I wonder what that means, daddy-o.
Daddy-o. I said baby Bernie. At any rate, I have a quick question. This is foreshadowing. What is Gen X?
You know, that's our age group, and I tried to get a hold of my chillins to ask them what they thought of Gen X, like, because when you're in life, you don't think about what this is going to mean someday, or what your kids are gonna think of you someday. And I really want to know from them, what is Gen X to them? To me, I can't explain it because I'm living it. I am it. So I
Well, there
can't
you go.
really define it.
There you go. Troy roughly knows what we're talking about. That was a perfect setup as far as foreshadowing goes also, because today's episode, what we're going to talk about is, people search for information on Google. I found a site that you can go to where you can find the top searches that have been out there. So I asked it this literal question: what are the top questions that people ask about Gen X? And it gave me 5 answers. And so we're going to go through them one by one. I have them listed here. But I want to say, before we get going, what might make this interesting for anybody that's maybe, why would I want to watch this, is the way that the answers or the questions are phrased. It appears that Gen X is sort of in this like almost archaeological layer of society. It's not ever about politics. It's not about lifestyle stuff. It's a different kind of almost anthropological look at Gen X, which made me almost feel like, what are we, like walking caricatures of ourselves, or like artifacts on display? So that was great that you say that like that, Troy, because I think that's the way that we want to answer these questions today. So these are the questions asked, and we are going to answer them as two people born in 1966 who grew up from 4 to 14 in the 70s, hit the 80s, in high school in the class of 1984. So that's Gen X early school road. And so we're going to look at it from that perspective. The first question here, Troy, that was asked is, why is Gen X called the forgotten generation?
That's a good question.
I hear crickets.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that.
The reason I say it so boldly like that is I'm familiar with this now, but only in the last few years have I become familiar with this term and another term we're going to get to shortly. But the forgotten generation, it's kind of interesting in and of itself, because there you go. It puts us in this historical context, not something that is lived, but is something that is remembered. And so that means we're like, what, not here? And so I did a little bit of looking around to find out what they mean by this. And it basically, it talks about how we've basically been overshadowed by the boomers and by the millennials. Boomers in existing power structures and stuff like that, and millennials in mostly political and up and coming sort of new generation workforce, which is interesting. Troy, are we being forgotten before we're gone?
I wonder if it's because our parents let us do whatever we wanted and they just forgot we existed.
We've never really been on the radar, huh? It's never really happened.
No one's ever really given a damn about us.
Right. That's why the reason Class of '84 is so big is, for starters, most of us knew about George Orwell and all that, and the 1984 book growing up, particularly those of us that were going to graduate in high school. It was something we talked about, like, oh my God, by the time we graduate high school, that's going to be it. This sort of mythology that we had in our head. And whether or not that's the case, that book coming to fruition is another episode, but still.
Yeah.
So here we are in 1984. And I lost my train of thought on why I was getting to 1984. But somewhere along the way, I guess we were. Oh, the reason I was going to say the reason that phrase is popularized and is the class of 1984 is a movie. So I googled the class of 1984, and I found out it's a fictitious thing. I was like, fictitious. So now even my graduating class and my generation are
We
like
don't
artifacts.
exist.
We don't exist. That's that fictitious movie was the next word, but I saw it's fictitious, and I was like, oh my gosh, here we go again. So at any rate, I don't know. What do we got to say? Do we have to like fart at the dinner table, or I don't know, burp in church? What do we got to do to get recognized or noticed
I remember
culturally?
in 1977, sixth grade, a fellow student, had a class. It was like a Los Angeles Rams jersey, and it had number 84 on it, and it said class of above 84. And I remember thinking, that's a long ways away. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember even as a kid wondering, what will it be like? What will I be like in 7 years? You know, in all that time that passed. And now I'm thinking back, what was I like in 1984?
Yeah, it's a blur. I mean, I can tell you based on the track record, I can't really replicate the mindset,
Yeah.
but but I can remember exactly what it looked like and describe some things. It's hard to really place, to be honest, where it is chronologically. Some of those it could have been 82 or 84, and I do that all the time when I talk about concerts I went to. I find out later, oh my gosh, I was off by a year, and we come back and correct ourselves in those episodes where we have spoken about concerts we've been to and stuff. But yeah, I had another point to make in there on that whole thing, but that's here it was. So we're both born in 1966. I don't know if it was the town I was not born in, but grew up in, Neoga, Illinois, same as Troy, Neoga, the Indians in Cumberland County. And so they, or maybe the University of Illinois, one of those two won, I think, the state championship, or it must have been state championship, not national championship. I don't know. In 1966. And of course, Dad was a huge basketball player. He played all throughout. He even played all the way up until high school, practically, for us.
Well, we
But
used to go watch Neoga Indians play high school when we were kids
yeah.
because he
Oh
was still
yeah.
stuck on the Neoga Indians.
Exactly, wearing our Chuck Taylors, on the high
Yep.
tops on that hard
Yep.
floor. At any rate, but I remember my mother told me that the day I was born, that my dad kept saying once more in 84 because of the championship. And he knew that I was going to be on the team and that I was going to lead Neoga. Maybe it was Neoga, but anyway, whoever won whatever they won, it was that year. And so once more in 84, back to that class of 84 thing.
Wow,
But,
that's pretty cool.
yeah, but I ended up dropping out of high school in 83 and didn't play basketball. Played football, but not basketball. So the next item up for bids is, what is a latchkey kid?
This is a good
Now,
one because
yeah.
I don't know. I'd never heard that term. I do know that, well, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so she was usually there, but it wouldn't have been a latchkey. It'd have been a under the mat or under the rock next to the door key kid.
Right. Right, exactly. And so this is what I said earlier, another term. I wasn't familiar with this term either until maybe like 5 years ago when this whole generation thing came around to me, even being aware Gen X was a thing. And so my experience was different than that. When I was living in Arizona, of course, it was that, but I did not live there a whole lot, especially during school year or anything like that. But in Chicago, growing up there in Illinois, it was nobody home when I got home from school, and not until like 5 or 6, and sometimes wouldn't even go home for dinner, just stay out all the way. And so let's just talk about it like what it was, okay? Instead of trying to describe it like we're going to look in something. Well, since we're forgotten, we might as well remind everybody. Troy, do you remember playing in Neoga in grandma's front yard with, cowboys and Indians with cap guns, or shooting BBs at trying to hit cans, or going on a bike ride with our BBs to shoot at the train, only to pull over and randomly go to somebody's yard and go to the garden hose and drink water and end up squirting each other, and they would not even care? I mean, those kinds of, or in the city, riding the bikes until the streetlights came on. I mean, these are all lived experiences. These aren't something only in the movies. And the movies, I don't think they glamorize them at all. I think they greatly mute them for what was really the freedom and what was really capable of happening with kids when they're out just playing
I do
unsupervised.
remember that playing like all the kids that liked guns. I mean, guns were a big thing, toy guns. We'd
Toy
have
guns are talking about
battles.
you
You could
too.
have enough kids to where you could have like 10 kids on the Union and 10 kids on the Confederate side and have a
Mm-hmm.
battle at the park or at
Mm-hmm.
grandma's. We did it at grandma's yard.
Right.
And then like I remember trains a lot.
Yeah.
I always had a
Lots of train.
fascination. But remember when trains would go by and they had these railroad cars that had automobiles on them and you could see the automobiles. What did you do? You
You threw
grabbed
rocks.
rocks and threw them at the cars, right?
That would have been the east-west line running through Effingham, or
Yep.
even the ones running through Neoga itself. We had
Yeah.
family in Effingham and Mattoon as well.
You had to
But
destroy those automobiles, and you didn't
right,
think of it was
you didn't
just a
think of it like
natural
that.
reaction. Hey, there's some
Right,
cars. I think I'll hit them with rocks.
I'll throw a rock at it. Yeah, I remember. Do you remember us doing that on the Toledo line? And do you recall one year it changed because they added those metal things? And that game was over forever. Those cars were forever behind little metal
Yeah,
plates
they're
on the
all
side, like
enclosed
aluminum.
now. That was
Right,
probably the early '80s. They started enclosing them.
right. And the other things like kick the can and all that definitely happened.
Oh yeah,
We did literally put the dog poop in a bag and light it on something. The judge's house. There was a judge that lived not far from us. We did the light the poop on the bag, put it on the front porch with the lighter fluid, light it on fire, go, and then knock on the door. And then run away. And then they come out and they step on it. Of course, then they have dog crap all over their foot.
I know that was
We
always an
literally
urban
did that.
legend. That was an
No, those
urban
are not
legend,
urban
and we
legends
thought,
at all. No.
no, but we heard about it. We're like, let's do it.
No, right. And, going to the lumberyard, hopping over the backyard fence to try to take some spare scrap stuff that nobody was going to miss to build a tree fort out in
Yep.
somebody's backyard that was an OSHA freaking disaster. Not that it was workspace, but still. And then sleeping up there, running electricity out your bedroom window, through the trees, all this stuff. I mean, and the little can with the string, that actually happened. We
Yep.
believe that stuff. And we really did also smoke banana peels out of aluminum foil pipes, thinking that it was going to get us high because of that song in the 60s that the hippies told us that bananas were somehow going to get us high. All and Cheerios. Did anybody remember Cheerios when that was it? Honey Nut Cheerios were supposed. I mean, these are things. This was urban legend, perhaps only in Chicago, but this is the kind of stuff that was able to come up with when you're sitting in a tree fort or a fort you built in the backyard, or you're in your basement because your parents let you have your own little, not man cave, but quasi whatever den of craziness that you come up with. If you're a Pink Floyd fan, it's all kinds of black lights and black posters or whatever. That could be any number of people. But the flavor of the times were so thick, and that freedom allowed us just to become I'm not trying to represent all Gen X here by any, and I'm an extreme example of some of this, but the amount of delinquency that went on that I'm aware of in literally all the friend groups I was associated with, and I'm not talking criminal, but just, things mom and dad would never find out about. And you wouldn't really want the police to know sometimes.
No,
Happened common.
Even when the police would just they would just say, "Oh, they're just kids. Let them have fun." Even though
You're right.
they're throwing snowballs at our car, they're just kids having fun.
And that would be fun. And that was another
Right.
things like that.
Today
You
they
would
would
have.
arrest you and throw you in jail.
Well, that didn't come till the teenage years, but the latchkey kid is mostly defined as this kid that comes home from school and the latchkey is around their neck, and usually the pictures, and they have a backpack on, which I don't know where that comes from. Backpacks weren't really as common, I don't recall.
Yeah.
I think they're thinking like today, like everybody has a Ninja Turtle backpack or whatever.
Right.
But and then they let themselves in the house and they do whatever. And that certainly was the case. I had it. Yeah, ours is under the mat. And literally everybody's was. It was that secure,
Right.
right? I mean,
They'll
we lock
never
the door
find it
every
here.
or that one rock, and it would be obvious which rock.
Yeah.
Right? And to practically say this rock written on it.
Yeah.
But Timmy,
painted fluorescent orange.
exactly, it's right there. And there's also a ham sandwich underneath that mom put in a Ziploc for you, or whatever, wrapped in cellophane. But yeah, so I don't want to. If my mother's watching, because I know she watched me say this once before and had a somewhat different remembering of this, and this is just one specific era, but I remember late in my quote high school career. I don't know what stage this was. I may have already been dropped out and back. I went back and forth a couple times. But she would be gone and my stepfather would be gone, and then they would be gone after school as well. But in the morning, I would get up and I'd go down to the kitchen. I'd make a hamburger because we had it in the freezer because they always had that big white freezer. The meat truck came and filled up with meat. And so you had this endless stack of separated by a white little thing, hamburger, throw it in there, put it on 2 white pieces of bun with some yellow mustard. And I had a coffee cup and I would fill the coffee cup, take the hamburger and walk down the sidewalk to the high school, Taft High School in Chicago. And so I'd be eating a hamburger, walking down the sidewalk with my cup of coffee on my way to high school. And that was not latchkey, but that's again, and it's not neglect. I'm not trying to say neglect, though some people, who cares? And that's not your business anyway. It's my life and my parents' choices. And so I had infinite amount of freedom. I mean, I could get up in the morning and then not see parents until 9:00 at night.
Next week.
Yeah. And sometimes I might see them briefly when they come home, but I'd be downstairs surrounded by amps. And by this time, it's all heavy metal with me. And I'd be off in the city somewhere. Who knows? I might not even be home till 1:00 sometimes. Again, I'm not trying to brag about this behavior. I was a high school dropout. I got in a lot of trouble in high school. And so that should not shock you.
Well, see, that goes back to the forgotten generation. Why I think our parents just forgot about us because we had so much freedom.
Right.
And
I think a lot of our angst,
I'm glad we did.
well, they didn't know what we're really doing and what they could see, and there's plenty of Gen X people out there that are watching this that this might not apply to at all. And that's great because that's just the way you grew up. Okay. I'm not trying to compare us to you or represent all of us by saying this. Just talking about his lived experience, trying to answer these questions as Gen X of these questions asked about Gen X. And so, I lose my track of thought when I do all these disclaimers like that. But it just to wrap it up, say it was definitely a time of freedom, and the forgotten part of it is the fact that they didn't know what we were doing and what they could see. Sometimes they did like look at the video we did on like Dungeons and Dragons and heavy metal and Ozzy Osbourne biting a head off a bat. I mean, it played Led Zeppelin backwards while listening to Pink Floyd upside down in a bathtub. You go to hell. It's like, what else, man? I mean, come on, we're just trying to have a good time here. And we were a happy bunch. We were not depressed. That came later. That's called millennials listen to it. Is largely us playing it, by the way. If you really want to if we talk about grunge, that's largely Gen Xers up in that. We'll talk about those topics in another show. But at any rate, that's what Latchkey Kid meant for us. If you have any comment about Latchkey Kids, you Gen Xers watching this, or anybody that wants to ask questions, and anybody else is more than free to chime in. Not trying to be exclusive here, but particularly this question, Latchkey, tell us what your experience was like. We'd love to hear about it. We lived our life, and that's really all we know. We've been around other people, but we can't describe their life. We can maybe a little bit, but it'd be great to hear from you. Comment below. Troy, the next item up for bids is, how did Gen X survive without cell phones?
Wow. Bicycles.
But let's unpack the question though here. How do you survive without something you don't know exists? Well,
right.
What is there to survive from? It's like us saying 5 years from now, people saying, how did you survive before all you had to do was look at your computer and tell it to make you a movie, and it would make a movie. You had to actually watch a pre-made movie.
But
What was that like?
why did you have to go to theaters with 100
Yes,
other people to watch a movie? That's stupid.
right. Right. Going back, I don't know, any number of you could anyway. So it's an interesting question to ask how somebody would miss something that they never encountered in the first place. But the
Yeah.
question, it depends on how deep you mean that. What layer? The layer where everybody can get in touch with me anytime via Facebook Messenger, Instagram message, maybe a reply through here on my phone, by my text, by my WhatsApp, by my Signal, that way? Or does it mean the way that Google knows where I'm at every second, and so does probably most of my apps that I haven't figured out how to disable that on, and I'm probably being tracked by that, so my location's known. How did I survive without those parts? How did I survive sitting on a bus for more than 10 minutes without staring at my hand?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no problem surviving those things.
No.
In fact, as much as I get it. We're in a modern age. We have to have it. It's kind of like saying I don't want to earn money anymore. Okay, great. Now what? But I could say I'm not going to use a cell phone anymore. But I mean, look, I've been working online for almost 30 years remotely. My whole world exists on these screens. It has. I've been sitting in this chair for 28 and a half years now. And so if I
have you
were to ditch without my cell phone, which I could literally do all of this from, I could do everything that I do if I had to through my cell phone without even an external keyboard. Um,
have you ever
yeah, the cell
tried
phone's
to
pretty
go
important.
without your cell phone or forgotten your cell phone and then panicked?
I would say no to the first one and yes to the second one, only because as an expat, my entire existence is wrapped up in this thing. It's got my digital visa. It's got my
Oh.
only banking information to be able to change, stuff like that. I can send, receive all that stuff. It's got contacts. It's got my U.S. phone line. It's got Colombia phone line. All that contact stuff. And most of my things are backed up to a cloud that I can access through here, my own cloud, not one of these other ones like these, sort of. But at any rate, that is a significant moment, and that has happened. And as an expat, that's a nightmare scenario.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Mm-hmm.
For me, Gen X. Here's a Gen X thing. I've fallen and I can't get up. That happened to me, and I did have my cell phone, and that's been several years ago. But I literally could not get up off the ground to call somebody for help. So now
Well,
if I forget my phone, I'm in panic
well,
mode, man.
Well, you know what, Troy? It sounds like this next question, these two sort of go together in that regard, because apparently we've been missing cell phones all along. Because the next question is one that I recently had asked of me, oddly. It's why do Gen Xers make a noise when they stand up?
Oh, do I ever?
Oh, man.
That's
Even if it's
funny.
just, I don't know, it's always something.
Well, I got out of bed this morning and I thought, I wonder if my son lives with me. And I went, ugh. I thought, oh, I wonder if my son can tell when I wake up in the morning because of the sound I make.
Probably. Okay, so I went and I Googled this question just because I wanted to hear what others said. The dad grunt or standing noise has become shorthand for middle age arriving. So there you go. And so this is a real live story. The day I turned 40, literally November. Well, I'm not going to say an actual birth. That's probably on Facebook. November 19th, 1966. That or 19, it would have been 19, add 40 to that, Steve. 16, right?
Yep.
No, 6.
6.
Look at our math. I'm a high school
Sure.
dropout. The morning I turned 40, everybody, do the math.
10?
16 years ago, 10. It would have been 6.
10's a
Okay,
round
so
number.
it was a round number. It ended in 6. Roughly 40 years after I was born.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, sorry. Okay, at any rate, that morning I literally woke up And I don't know what the hell I did the day before, but as I was getting out of bed, I actually had a backache, and I said, "Oh, my back," and then it hit me. I was like, "That's so like stereotypical." I was half expecting when I turned 60 to go reach for my cane, or 50, but reach for my cane. That didn't happen. Maybe it'll happen this year when I turn 60. But really, the morning I turned 40, I literally sat up and said, "Oh, my back," before I even realized I just turned 40. So the dad grunt, middle-aged men, even for those young, older millennials, you're in that zone now. You're over 40. Gen Xers are largely around 46, I guess, by now, right? Whatever it is. Because if I'm going to be 60, yeah, they've been, 15-year difference. So, yeah,
Wow.
they'll be turning 45, some of them this year, I guess, or 46. However the math goes on that. We had an extra year. Most of them think about 15 years as a generation, but we've got 65 through 80, which is a full 15 years. Well, yeah. Anyway, I'm getting lost in bad math here. So anyway, I guess we're synonymous with middle age now, and that's what it is. And so you could probably expect this, Z, when you get there. Boomers, you're past this. You have your cane. Sorry, boomers. But I guess that the dad grunt just comes with time. But I
The
wonder, do women do
granddad
it?
grunt must get worse.
Do women do it? Do women do it, or do they vocalize it?
Hmm.
Interesting question. Gen X women, fill us in below. That could explain other things. Other things in the mystique of women that we have yet to figure out could be the
This is
equivalent of the
interesting. Very,
dad
very
grunt. We're
interesting.
going to everybody, men, join us on this theory. We're on something here. I know it. We're going to start our new course, our own podcast, our master class on answering the question of the women's dad grunt. All right, the last one we have here. That was shitty ending. All right, so 5, we have, when are Gen X peak earning and spending years?
I've
Are they,
I'm past all that.
now notice it says are. So that means currently happening, not were as in took
Oh.
place, because were is the place for both of mine on that.
When are our peak
When are
spending?
their peak earning and spending years? All right. So
Huh.
that's what led me to say, well, the way we're going to answer that is two ways. One, let's talk about ourselves briefly. If you want to try, I'm not asking you to overshare or anything, but for me, obviously, when I was running UGA Sports, working that 17 years podcasting and, having the website and all it was a major operation. And so I was making good money, and I was living larger, bought houses, bought a Jeep, drove it off the lot for cash one day, brand new 2006, maxed out, whatever it was, unlimited, whatever, Grand Cherokee. So I was in a position to be able to do things like that, no problem. So anybody can use the math and figure it out. Not that you have to. So I was living well. Those years, when that all collapsed, when I was diagnosed terminal in 2010, I don't see a path back to that plateau again, particularly because it completely wiped me out. I had to sell the company and move on. And now in my other professional work, it's meager. And so, and rebuilding after transplant was not easy. Like I've said before,
Yeah.
when I got done with transplant, I had $300 in my bank account and nothing, no others. I had gone through everything during that 10 years of getting through that illness.
Yeah,
So
that's a rough one.
that was. And so at any rate, so for me, and there's probably others in the Gen X community for whatever reason, doesn't have to be illness, could be financial wipeout in 2008, whatever that was, the years of that, the crisis then, a lot of people had saved and had stuff wiped out. It did, friends like Danny, for instance, who was just on the show recently, he had bought himself a home and everything. We didn't talk about this. I talk about it in the other interview on the front page, on our front channel that I did with him in 2019. You'll see that on the collaboration or other website link down below because I did it on a different YouTube channel. He had his entire home washed away, literally washed away in one of the Colorado floods, and he had
Wow.
bought this house and fixed it and got it all nice, and all of his hard work from traveling and being on the road touring like he'd been forever, and had this little kingdom set up. And then one day, all of it, including his vehicle, are gone and not recoverable. And insurance wasn't for flood insurance or something like
Oh
that.
my
And
God.
if that's not exactly the case, Danny, I'm trying not to overstate it or say it wrong, but I know that it was a complete disaster, whatever it was. And Danny's of course bounced back, but still, other people have catastrophic events that happen in their life that just put them on that path. Other people just for whatever reason don't have anything really. They may be maxed out and haven't been able to get back for whatever reason. We all have our reasons. But for people that have been for those in the Gen X community now that have been on the straight and narrow, or at least very responsible in your management of your life in the way that you've planned to do it. The peak years I Googled what is the typical one, and you imagine to be right now, basically, is 2024 through 2033. And that's putting us basically into our late 50s and 60s for, the 50s, 60s for the Gen X community, meaning that they're expecting most of us, for the ones that have been on maybe the corporate path or building a business that's maxing out and they have franchises or whatever they're doing, that if it's been progressively growing, then this is the maximum time. And it also, though, oddly, for spending, it said that this time would be the same too. And I imagine that's the same kind of setup. They're saying that it would be retirement and, that would be why the most money would be spent. So the combination of maxing out towards the end of professional careers and then the kicking in of retirement and retirement plans and spending in general. But for me, I've pretty much lived my whole life at a constant maximum spending. It's been, I mean, it was different when I had the 17 years at UGA Sports, but in times when it's lean, maximum spending is usually meant covering all the bills.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes it's like, okay, well, that evened out at the end of the month. At least I lived, worked all these days, paid all these bills. Now let's go again. It's like the bank account just goes up and down. And, that's reality for a lot of people. I mean, sure, you might have a savings, marginal savings, but daily, I mean, you see it all the time. People live paycheck to paycheck and stuff like that. So peak earning for Gen X, we've been up and down the road with resets like we've talked about, the financial crisis. We had 9/11, which I really want to get back to here in a couple of weeks. I'm putting together an episode on 9/11. 9/11, the financial crisis, and then the social upheaval of the last 10 years or whatever, COVID, and now just uncertainty in general that AI jobs going to take, they're going to take all our jobs. So it's just constant resets. So a lot of us have had moments in that when everything was great, but that volatility has been so earth moving that it's been hard to adapt for a lot of it, depending on your business. So
Yeah, it was easier to start over again when you're younger. You could lose everything and then, well, I'll just get back at it and do it again. Lose everything again, get back at
right,
it, do it again. But
right,
now at retirement, I've reached the point where I don't want to do it again. I'm fine with everything the way it is.
right. And to reminisce, just think. Everybody think back now. Let's make it like 1974 in South Central Illinois, cornfields all around, little bitty town, right? White concrete roads basically in town or whatever that stuff is, not asphalt. That's in the country. And there's a hardware store. And there's like 3 dudes working there. And it's next to the furniture store. And it's next to the paint store. And it's next to the
Yeah.
one grocery store in town. And in this collection, you have maybe 15, 20 people that are working throughout all these. And all 15 or 20 of them show up every day. They all know each other and they all go on vacation once a year, probably to like Florida. They all have a home. They all have their 2 cars. They all have not a ton of money, but they have a savings that somehow that was going on. But it's, to me, to picture today working at True Value Hardware, first, there'd be a stigma about it. You only work at the hardware store, whereas that
Yeah.
used to be not a question what your job was, the fact that you had one.
Right.
And then the difference in affordability of things such as going on a vacation would be drastically different today. That equivalent would be a Walmart person. Is a Walmart person still each year in as happy a position today right now as the guy working at a hardware store in a Midwestern town in the 70s? Probably not. And just think of the community, all of that. That was a happy, happy time. That's what makes it so different for us. That's what we're going to cover here a little bit more later in a couple of weeks. I want to get back to the happiness of the era. I think this has a lot for it.
Like, we'd always go on vacations when we were kids.
And nobody was rich.
Nobody was rich. You didn't have to be rich to eat.
No. But you'd go.
Remember when that bug flew or hit the Kellys' next door window and shattered it?
When
and they thought that you threw a shoe through it or something.
June bug was this big.
Yeah,
it was in Arizona. Or not? Boom! Japanese beetle.
Yeah, it was huge. So, and circling back to vacationing, we ran. The Kellys thought we'd done it, and they'd come over and said, well, we can't go on vacation now because your kids broke our window. And I remember Dad laughing at them and said, well, you're not going very far if the cost of a window is preventing you from getting there.
That's mean. I wonder if they meant just because they had to fix it, but that's a good one, Dad.
Yeah,
but
and he paid for it, but he just
right. But think back real fast, and we'll get out of here, folks. We're about running out of time. Well, we're not on a clock or anything, but we don't want to keep you too long. But just think of some of the other key differences that might have been in place. That trip, like when we drive from Arizona to Illinois once a year, that straight 22-hour drive, Dad would drive the entire 22 hours.
Yeah,
and
gotta get there.
But we would be in the car, facing backwards, looking out the back of the car, and that's in this backseat of the station wagon. But we'd have like a cooler, and it would have 10 bologna sandwiches, and maybe one big bag of potato chips, and that's basically, and then maybe something that had water in it or something. I don't even remember drinks really being in the equation, but that's what we'd eat. We wouldn't stop. Dad would just keep driving. And,
do you remember this one? He always did this, never failed. Anybody got to go to the restroom as you're going past the rest area?
It'll be in 3 hours.
I gotta go. He go, well, the next stop's 398 miles. Yeah. Can you hold it?
Right. This is driving in the Southwest, people. Exactly. Yeah. It was like that too. There it goes. That would make him think of it as it went by. And yeah.
Yeah, I remember this is kind of silly but funny, but I don't know, somebody had gas in the car, and Dad goes, God, roll the window down if you're gonna be doing that. So one of us brothers was rolling the window down like every 30 seconds. Dad was, quit rolling the window down. Well, you said roll the window down.
Yeah. Okay. Now kids today probably still do that. Hopefully kids still do that. I hope they do that kind of stuff all forever. But at any rate, any other closing thoughts, Jay, on Troy? I don't know. It is weird how. Yeah, I mean, we don't have a Gen X president yet. Yeah.
Oh man, who's that gonna be?
Is Rubio? I don't want to get political, people. Nobody lose your mind because I said one of the two parties. But I just want to find out, when is Marco Rubio?
Well, I'm putting my bid in now. Then Troy for president.
Troy for president. He was born in. Gee whiz. Oh, here we go. Yes.
Hey.
71. He's a Gen Xer. We should get him on the Gen. Hey, if he runs for president, we got to get him on Gen X Transplant Bros of this podcast. Answer some questions about growing up Gen X in Florida
as president,
and then becoming president.
He's young. I didn't know
the Gen X. Wow, we got to score that first Gen X interview.
Right.
Start working on it now. Hey, I'm changing my residence to Florida, effective immediately.
Let's start calling like we know him personally, like we got names
Marco.
for him. No,
I'll,
the
I'll start.
rubes.
I'll start saying it like in Colombia, like Marco. How would you say it?
Marco.
No, that's Mexican.
Marco.
Okay. All right, let's get out. We're going to offend half the country now. So that's it. Wait, Troy, do you have anything else? Last thing, nothing.
Nothing.
All right,
Got
folks, that's
nothing.
it for this week. We do have some interesting guests coming up. We've got a big one I'm trying to reel in that you all have heard of. And then we have the former bandmate that's agreed to come on. We got two of those, actually. I'm having a hard time scheduling those, but that's going to happen. We have some other content planned, but if you like this kind of content, be sure to comment below, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, comment again. And also on the front page, we have posts from time to time if you ever want to comment on those. And we also have, that's the community tab, I think, up there. We'd love to hear from you. That's the point that we're trying. The reason we're doing this is we'd like to talk to Gen Xers about what it was like growing up Gen X and occasionally touch on what's going on today. On Tuesdays, I have the accidental expat version of this where most of that happens. But otherwise, until next Friday, we will see you next time. Troy,
Adios.
take it easy, man. Okay, end the session.